Makoto is a descendant of a god, for he belongs to a tribe of people that wields the power of the Kotodama, an ability that allows one to invoke power into one's own voice. Wishing to see the outside world for the very first time, Makoto leaves his hidden, isolated village. With places to see and people to meet, Makoto will encounter many new experiences and face emotions he has never felt before as he attempts to help the new girls he meets, for they have special circumstances that drastically impact their lives, including one girl that is unable to be controlled by the Kotodama. Hi, my name is August and this is Amasutsumi. The power of the Kotodama is an extremely powerful tool. One can use it to manipulate people to one's desires and whims. There's no doubt that this is a dangerous ability that Makoto has, not to others, but to himself. Makoto and the Kotodama is the strongest hook of Amatsutsumi. At first, he uses Kotodamas to make life easier for him. After being picked up by a girl named Kokoro, Makoto uses his Kotodama to convince her and her mother that he's a part of their family, to give himself a place to stay and people to support him. Makoto's not a bad person. He just has no idea what's considered common sense in this new environment. He's thoughtful and kind to the people he meets, but he's rather dense when it comes to the more complicated interactions, romantic urges included. He may think that he can easily resolve problems through the use of his Kotodama, but his hasty, ignorant uses of his godly powers might end up making more issues than what he initially set out to fix. Simply watching the drastic effects of the Kotodama becomes an interesting point for the visual novel, which makes it that much more dramatic when the only character in which the Kotodama doesn't work on, a power symbolizing the status of a god, forces him to reevaluate what it means to be human. Makoto's a very introspective person. He's able to become closer to that ideal of an ordinary human being, someone who can empathize with others, fall in love, and even feel hatred. It's very interesting to watch as he pieces together his newfound complicated feelings and emotions. His good-hearted desires and the promise he made is a driving force, and by the end, Makoto is a solid protagonist, even if his relationships were a sham to begin with. Now, Kokoro, in my eyes, fits the ideal anime little sister archetype. Happily cheerful while being a bit of an airhead, a big supporter of family, and the most important, lovingly affectionate towards her big brother. Also, in the very real sense, she is 110% not blood related. I find it extremely amusing how Kokoro's relationship with Makoto operates on the strangest of technicalities, like we can't have sex, but kissing is totally fine, and we're not having sex, we're just casually grinding on each other's private parts. A huge part to their relationship is centered all around family, because while they may be strangers, Makoto becomes fond of Kokoro and her mother, which makes it that much more painful given that he's been deceiving them this whole time. It leads into an emotionally strong climax similar to a Key-style tearjerker visual novel, a strong first impression for a drama-focused, story-driven romance. Now, Amasutsumi operates on a ladder structure. The common route has arcs that focus on a dedicated heroine, and after a heroine's arc, you are given the option to branch off into their route. If you don't choose to go into that character route, the story continues into the next arc, focusing on the next heroine, and this continues until you reach the final character, what you might consider the true ending. While the common route arcs largely focus on the main core of the heroine's struggles, the heroine routes themselves are the leftovers, speaking bluntly. Some slice of life scenes here, a couple of cute moments there, and H scenes thrown in for good measure. But it's nothing truly engaging like their common route arcs. It's mostly just tying up loose ends. And for the case of a certain shrine maiden dealing with her supernatural powers. Meet Kyoko, a rather shy and clumsy girl who could really use a confidence boost. Well, at least she's trying. Can't really blame the poor girl given her ability to see ghosts. Thankfully, Makoto has descended from the heavens to help her out, at least in her eyes. Although Kyoko has this self-deprecating personality throughout the beginning portions of her route, often bending over backwards for Makoto, the unassuming man-slut that he is, eventually she does become a more open and positive person. Someone very much fitting for that bombshell of a dress that she wears. Outside of her common route, however, Kyoko is pretty plain storytelling-wise. I would have loved for Amasutsumi to go further with Kyoko's social issues, or, allow us to actually see the ghosts. Instead, it feels very surface level. Most of the slice of life events in Amasutsumi aren't that particularly exciting, nor are they that comedic. When the story isn't laser focused on driving its main narrative, everything else feels lacking in comparison, never diving deeper into its characters or exploring relationship dynamics. Likewise, we have someone who can give less of a shit about everybody, a very dominating, sadistic woman who chased after her fiance after he abandoned her. In contrast to the pleasant, friendly, kind girls that Makoto meets, Mana is ice cold. The only thing on her mind is Makoto and Makoto only. Everyone else doesn't matter, and her attitude makes everyone fully aware of that. Really, the main question I should be asking is, are you weak to a girl that loves you very aggressively? If so, Mana might be up your alley. She may appear antagonistic, but really she just genuinely cares about Makoto, and in relation, the social order of the world. After all, both of them are individuals with godly powers. She'll not fully take back Makoto if he gets too involved with the affairs of the humans. Who knows what could happen if he decided to tamper with the natural course of the world? Isn't a mistake for a god to try to live amongst the humans. Mana's very lovingly overbearing like that, both normally and in her H scenes, because oh boy does Amatsutsumi go all the way. Amasutsumi's illustrations for the H scenes are quite nice looking, mosaics not included. There's plenty of passionate loving all around, quite long actually, and the scenarios building up to them are pretty enticing, with and without the use of the Kotodama. However, what made the biggest impression was the last H scene in the Common Route story. That H scene had me fully invested, not because of the fiery lovemaking, but because of the story significance behind it, despite how uncomfortable it is. I was in it for the serious character interactions. It was a complete surprise, an absolute rarity, and one of my favorite H scenes I've read. And lastly, while all the heroines are nice in their own right, it pales in comparison to the poster heroine of the game, a character in which the visual novel would not be as good without her and her route. Dare I say, Amatsutsumi is built solely for her. For a playful and bubbly girl, Hotsuru is quite the free spirit. Being sociable and friendly, Hotsuru takes a liking to Makoto and helps him adjust to his new environment. And it's here we learn that she's actually pretty intelligent, while also being a little bit mischievous. And for sure, isn't hiding anything. Nope. Absolutely not. What really sets Hotsuru apart from the main cast, besides her whirlwind appearances and her accompanying theme song, is how much of an enigma she is. Not only does the Kotodama not work on her, but it's the fact that Hotsuru can sway between being an elusive teasing prankster to a tragic pile of problems within seconds. It's rather concerning when she drops gigantic red flags casually and you can't tell whether she's actually being serious or not. She is definitely intriguing, but it's not her two-faced appearances that make me like her so much. Rather, it's in how she acts as a fantastic emotional guide. Makoto has been living as an isolated individual, one that has the reality-changing abilities of the Kotodama. He may be interested in all the wonderful things in human nature, but he'll also learn all of the terrible aspects of it too. Now that he's living among them, there's no doubt he'll be influenced by those negative emotions. That's just human nature. What ultimately matters is in how one deals with it. Hotsuru is there to steer Makoto the right way. It's her role to teach him. Even if he suffers despair from within or from others, he has to overcome it for the sake of making people happy. The final chapter of Amasutsumi is a direct challenge to Makoto, and it proves to be the most compelling section in the visual novel. Amasutsumi has a really strong hook to kick off, and it's great at delivering emotional high points. That said, it's the in-between moments before the story really starts building into its climaxes that feels lacking. If you consider Amasutsumi as a whole, including the after-story heroine routes, I would say a 3 out of 5. But speaking purely about the mainline story, as a gradual build-up to Hotsuru's true route, Amasutsumi gets a 4 out of 5 from me. If you liked Amasutsumi, I would highly recommend other works by the same developer, such as Chrono Clock, Hoppenmeyer, and Aoi Tori. Click here for another visual novel recommendation, follow me on Twitter for more of my thoughts on visual novels, and I'll see you all later.